This is just dumb.
I just watched Complete Rationality's video, An Islamic Scholar, question mark, question mark, question mark. And to understand what he was responding to, I unfortunately had to watch the video in the link. And unfortunately, that took me to Evidence for God Not Necessary by an Islamic guy who calls himself DawahFilms. A really pretentious, mocking, condescending individual who comes off sounding quite arrogant. So here's my response.
Many contemporary atheists have this mantra about evidence in God's existence. The same thing they keep saying over and over and over again. There is no evidence for God, therefore it is irrational to believe in God. Or they constantly ask that theists provide evidence for the existence of God, else they're not worthy of listening to.
First of all, what I'd like you to notice about this guy is his name is DawahFilms, okay? He fancies himself a producer, a director. He's a terrible actor. He overacts. He emotes more than an emoticon, this guy. He turns his head this way, he turns his head that way for the right angle. He puts it on sepia, whatever you call it. He really thinks he has an artistic flair. A lot of hyper editing and oh, I'm going to throw on my fake atheist voice now, and I'm going to turn my head this way and that way for all my subscribers. Oh, you can see how handsome I am. And yes, you're a lot better looking than me. But you know what? I'm here not for popularity. I'm not here to be sitting here looking good and hyper editing. I'm here to discuss the facts. Now, the first thing that you point out is we contemporary atheists tend to repeat the mantra of, oh, you're irrational if you don't have any evidence. Yeah, oh, sorry, we require evidence. We're only talking about the most important thing that, if it's true, that you could possibly talk about. There being a God. Hello, what is more important that would require evidence? There could be, I argue, nothing more important than if there is a God or not, or if there's an afterlife or not. So, damn right we want some fucking evidence. Are you fucking serious?
Now, I do believe that there are good reasons and sufficient justification for belief in God.
I'm just not going to give you any.
However, I don't feel that it's necessary to give them.
Ah, those pesky atheists. They want evidence. Evidence. Who needs that? Well, let's be fair. Let's see what he has to say why he doesn't feel he needs to provide any evidence.
One has more to do with how atheists view evidence and what I consider to be unreasonable demands.
Oh, yes. Let's see what he thinks is unreasonable for us to demand evidence for ourselves. Let's see what he thinks is unreasonable. Oh, how about seeing the God? How about him coming down and saying, hey, what's up? I created you. How about that? That would go a long way, don't you think? Is that unreasonable? Where's the rule that says gods can't appear? If I was God, I'd appear every day. Every morning, you'd see my ass right there in the cloud. I'd be like, oh, here's God. That's right. Kiss my ass, motherfucker.
Most contemporary atheists follow this idea that evidence or sufficient justification is only found in science. In other words, if the purported evidence is not detected by the five senses, it's not sufficient.
Yes, we crazy atheists have this flippant idea that, ooh, the senses are what collect information. How naive, how short-sighted.
Many contemporary atheists will then say that this non-material entity, God, must then therefore be proven by physical evidence. Anybody see the problem yet?
Yes, I do quite see the problem, and see what it is you've built a straw man, namely that God is immaterial, and then set it up to be destroyed by saying that is what the atheist claims. The atheist never claimed that God is immaterial and then must be proven by material means. You're the one that suggests there's a God.
When I hear many atheists suggest this, that I need evidence for the existence of God, I think they're just playing word games, because to them, it's not possible.
Yeah, you're right. When I say evidence, I don't really mean evidence. I mean, my requirements for evidence would be so stringent that it's impossible to prove there's a God. Please. That's just a bit disingenuous, you think? You don't think that if God came floating down and said, yo, what up, dog? I wouldn't be a believer? You don't think if I was standing there watching a guy with no legs, all of a sudden, not in 6 months, not in a year, all of a sudden some new legs appear because some priest prayed over him? You don't think I would believe? Come on, man. You're just lying. I'll tell you straight up, you are telling a lie.
And especially with the advent of quantum physics, well, anything can happen, right?
Come on, man. Quantum physics, man. Come on, man.
Note my video, Atheism Not the Default Position, for a full philosophical critique of the presumption of atheism.
Yeah, well you can note my video, These Nuts.
My major gripe, however, with this claim or this question that do you have evidence for God's existence, is that it's completely nonsensical, given the fact that the normative, natural disposition is to believe in the supernatural.
Yeah, so what?
We, as human beings, generally, are hardwired to believe in the supernatural.
Yeah, so what?
More precisely, we're hardwired to be dualist and to see agency and purpose around us. It's essentially part of our basic programming.
And why is it you suppose that we are hardwired for supernatural thinking? Is it because supernatural thinking is an explanation for what we don't know, and as we are able to explain things just in proportion we explain them, we drop the supernatural beliefs? Everything we've seen up to now has not been supernatural. Nothing supernatural. The way the universe works, the way the human body works, the way the earth was formed, the sun, none of that is supernatural. We need no supernatural explanation any longer. So why should we assume there is any supernatural entity out there? Of course we are born with a supernatural thinking because we don't understand how the world works. Our mind is still forming. It's young. It's susceptible to any thought or any idea until we have time to test theories and then work things out. And then as we get older, we're supposed to get smarter. But I see it's not working too well for you, is it?
So the idea that I have to somehow give evidence for something that I'm already predisposed to believing seems to me to be rather ludicrous.
I'll tell you what's rather ludicrous is the fact you even bothered to make this video.
My perception of reality in total is what allows me to live and to understand things.
Yep.
Part of that perception includes my interpretation of the external world.
Right,
I'm essentially limited to seeing the world as I'm programmed to, because I have no other tools in which to perceive it. I see cause and effect, I see certain colors, I see, certain sizes.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them blue for me and you.
And I also happen to see intention and agency and sort of a dualistic view of the world. And this is simply what I'm forced to believe based on what my psyche allows. Because this is all I have. There's no other tools in the toolbox.
Oh, well, that's plainly evident. We can see that. Don't you worry.
Did you ever have one of those homeless guys walk up to you who's obviously had a bit too much to drink or too many drugs?
Yeah, I'm just going to ignore this whole tirade you go off on about this perceived reality and how you try to make an analogy with a homeless guy. Yeah, I've had one of those homeless guys come up to me. You act like they're scum of the earth, those homeless guys. Could you sound any more condescending? Could you sound any more uneducated? Could you stereotype any more? Do you know anything about the real life, that anybody could end up homeless and that a lot more people are going to in the near future? Are you that naive? Are you that stupid? Really? I'm just going to ignore that whole section on the homeless guy and your terrible analogy. I'm going to move on, okay? For your benefit.
I mean, when I walk down the street, I don't expect to, fall through the earth and end up in some sort of alternate dimension.
That's good to know. I'm fucking glad to hear it.
Or when I walk outside and I see a tree, I don't expect it to be something other than a tree unless there's some sort of data that tells me otherwise.
Alright, so what you're saying is a tree until some data says it's not. Then it's not a tree.
What I initially perceive or understand is there to me, until of course an anomaly takes place.
What, like getting dropped on your head when you were a little kid?
I have absolutely no reason to question something unless I have a reason to question it.
Who the fuck are you, Rene Descartes? Well, I mean, what the fuck was that, a deepity? What are you, Dan Dennett? Who the fuck? Are you serious?
And what many contemporary atheists want you to believe is that we're born in this world questioning everything in such a way that we assume that what's there is not really there.
Come on, dude, you're just making shit up now. You should have stopped the video 10 minutes ago.
In other words, they're like the homeless guy on the street telling you that everything is an illusion.
You think you're so smart, too, but you know what you are? You're a naive, idealistic punk. And you're insensitive. The way you talk about homeless people as if they're scum of the earth just there for you to draw a lesson from and to make a point out of. How fucking dare you?
So, in my mind, who's the one that's more rational here?
Me, motherfucker.
Who's the one who's really going through some sort of cognitive dissonance?
You, motherfucker.
If our normative disposition is to believe in the supernatural, then this idea that all we can know is the natural, or that there is no evidence for God, and that it's irrational to believe in God or the supernatural, is really the more irrational belief. This is just dumb. It is quite possible that default positions are more on the individual level. However, I would say that what is normative is more rational than what is not. This is just dumb. When I didn't exist, I didn't believe in God, so therefore I must be more rational than you. Now, this is just dumb. A starting position based on a being that hasn't even developed their faculties to the point of even, this is just dumb. I saw the world as purposeful or having some sort of intention or agency. This is just dumb. When somebody told me about God for the first time, the only thing that I learned new was a word and a label. This is just dumb. So the idea that I have to somehow give justification for something that I'm forced to believe, something that is normatively natural to the human mind, to me, this is irrational. This is just dumb. And therefore, I see this as a waste of time. In fact, this whole discussion regarding, rationality and justification for belief in God should have ended a long time ago.
That's the first thing you've said in the last 10 minutes that wasn't either a lie or pulled directly out of your asshole.
And for all of you out there saying this is a genetic fallacy or a naturalistic fallacy, I'm sorry, but no. I'm not arguing for the truth of believing in God or the actuality of God's existence.
Could you be any more full of shit?
I'm simply arguing for the rational starting point and against this idea that somehow everything requires evidence.
Hey, I'm not saying you can't believe something without evidence. I'm just saying if you want me to believe it too, damn well better be some evidence.
So yes, that is my answer to the question of whether or not there is evidence for God's existence or that evidence is required for God's existence. I refuse to answer it because it's not necessary.
Well, that's very good and nice, my dear, that you don't require evidence, but you see, my silly chap, I do.
And it's not for me to prove to you that God does exist.
You silly little twat. You're the one that claims he exists, not me.
Because for me to even provide you with evidence, or to interpret evidence, I have to use the very same faculties that I have in order to justify that.
Yes, my dear, I see your dilemma exactly. You have very few faculties with which to work. I understand that, my dear.
As a firm believer in the theory myself, I really don't see how it contradicts the idea that the world has agency or intention and purpose. But this is really more of a philosophical problem, which most atheists these days don't even care for. How many times have I heard most atheists say that philosophy is nonsense? It's not as good as science. It is not even counted as a real form of knowledge. So many atheists I've talked to are not even ashamed of this fact, of being so willfully ignorant of philosophical discourse. I mean, talking to an atheist about philosophy is like talking to a young earth creationist about evolution.
You see, my dear, atheists are not afraid of philosophy. Most philosophers are atheists, my dear. What we are averse to is bullshit. And you, sir, are full of bullshit. You're just a little wanker.